those are kind of a few things I thought of, at least, that you can look at or you can think of, like, am I seeing that with my group? Am I seeing that with my team? So I want to talk a little bit about kind of like how the overcoaching thing looks, maybe like some signs about it, whatever. And then I want to go, like, maybe at the end we could do some examples of like the kid that doesn't care, how to coach to that, the kid that really cares, how to different ages, that kind of thing. So I'm going to list these. I'm just going to say each of the headings, and then if there's any thoughts you have, you can interrupt me or you can talk about it when I'm done. So kind of the first thing is like the negative. Well, actually, maybe we'll go out of order. So like signs that you could be overcoaching. Okay. So signs of like it manifesting itself. These are things like you can look for as a coach as signs that you are overcoaching the situation, or maybe you're not doing the best job necessarily. Okay. So I'm going to list them and then you can interrupt or talk about it after. So first one would be like, you're constantly having to criticize a kid or kids. So if there's like a kid that you're constantly having to like push their buttons, or you're constantly having to say something to, one way you could think about that as a coach is like, this kid is a pain in my ass, which could be the case. But another thing could be like, it's too much. You're doing too much on this kid, right? Which you're getting a backlash for it, kind of thing, right? So that's one. Another thing could be like excessive training. Like you're making them do extra skates, you're making them do extra practices, you're making them do extra workout, pregame this, like all too much stuff. That could be another indicator. That's a good one. When the kids are not having fun, or they don't seem like they're having fun, and you can simply ask them, right? You can simply ask them if you guys had fun. If you do, like we do at the end of all of our camps, it's like we bring them in, and they're like more instruction-based camps, and the kids will come in, like, "Do you guys have fun?" That's question one. And some kids will just say yes because that's what you say, right? But you can have a follow up, like, what was fun about it? What did you like? What was your favorite part? Like these kind of things, right? There's your thing, right? If kids are like just tired, like physically, emotionally, whatever, that's another one. Kids are getting hurt. That kind of goes in with the excessive training. If you have a high dropout or turnover rate,
that's a huge indicator.
That's a huge indicator, man. Yeah. Right? If people want to leave, that's not a good thing. If you got a bunch of kids that are always crying or frustrated, right? Could be another indicator. Parents are expressing concern. If their performance is declining in some way, like over the year, you're seeing that they're actually getting worse, not better. Kids are complaining, or parents are complaining that kids don't have confidence. If you feel like you always have to be there for things to run well, that's another one where there's just like no autonomy with the group. Kids are scared of making mistakes. And then obviously if like kids are expressing some kind of mental health issue because of you. So these are, again, it doesn't mean that you're 100% overcoaching or not doing a good job or whatever, because sometimes kids just have issues, man. Like that just happens. But those are kind of a few things I thought of, at least, that you can look at or you can think of, like, am I seeing that with my group? Am I seeing that with my team? How are these things manifesting? Because there's to some degree, like, you're going to have a kid that cries. It's like, okay, was that you or was it them? Like, it's good to ask the question, right? So just running through that list, that's something you guys can check to see whether or not you're doing it. So one, for your question for you, any thoughts on that, number one, in general? And then two, how would you like, or maybe you could just talk about in general, how to find the balance between that urge to constantly correct or constantly coach versus backing off and kind of letting them do their thing. So those are, I guess, two things you can kind of go with.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think you have to know like what you know and know what you don't know. Number one, that's a really important thing, because you can get caught talking in a big circle if you talk about what you don't know. So when you talk about what you know, it's the key is to be clear and concise. You have to understand that anybody doesn't want to hear. I would say pretty much anybody. I got to say the sentence better. I think this applies to just about anybody. You can only hear someone's voice for so long before it becomes annoying. Even the positive guy that walks in and, how you doing? Super good and getting better.
Yeah.
Okay, relax, man. Like, good for you.
Yeah.
And then it's never nonstop, like, and then, but especially the super negative guy that's just beating the snot out of you every day, like telling you how shitty you are, and I'm not even saying shitty, but like it's constantly in the correction mode. Like, a person can only take so much of one person. That's why it's very refreshing for my buddy Dale the coaches at Leamington Flyers, that I come out and help them in skills days, and I jump on the odd practice right now because he's actually more experienced at the game of hockey, was drafted, played pro, all that shit. And he's a very intelligent hockey guy. I have a nice resume on my own, but it's not because I'm so much better at being skills coaching and all that stuff of putting things that help them in the game is good, but I just bring a different approach. So it's a different voice, a fresh voice that's not barking at them all the time, right? So that's refreshing. So always understand that the more that you talk, the less that they're going to hear. Less is more is less, whatever it is. So the key is keeping things clear and concise and say what's important. So what happens a lot of times when people coach or teach or whatever, for the first time, like your desire to make everything work that's a good thing. But when you overload people, it's then because what you're basically saying to them, this is not happening fast enough and things take time, right? So for example, if you're a coach that, well, here's my philosophy when I do something. Just my philosophy. I had someone ask me one day, how did you get results out of the kids so fast? I said, well, first of all, I showed the drill, right? Like, so if it was a skill drill that I used to have the ability to do, which I do it at a slower pace now, but let's just say it is, here's what I want you to do. It's going to look like this. So it's, da 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 da, shoot, whatever, right? There it is. Go ahead. And I might give one or two pointers, right? Weight transfer here. Make sure you're moving your feet. Keep your head up. Let's say it's those three things. Great. Do the drill. So I already know that they're going to fail or it's not going to be perfect. I already know that. So do I go all the details of what's going to go wrong? Don't do this. Don't do this. No. Here's the thing. Here's three things that I want you to focus on. So I know they're going to do it. So show them. Next thing is point out one or two things to correct, like in a group. And then if you have time, if you see some really big time things, then you go and individually coach, right? So show, correct, and you keep continuing on that till it becomes better. Does it happen in 5 minutes? Sometimes it takes 4 months, right? But I think that's really important. So now if you break down every little thing, every little time, like you got to be able to show some success. So let's just say in that first drill that we were doing that they did one out of three things properly. Do you harp on the two things right away? How about praising the good thing? How about, hey, your feet were really moving.
Yes,
good job.
yes, set it up. Yeah.
Fantastic. Your feet are moving. Now kid goes, oh, okay, good. And you don't have to hammer them right away with, but you did these two shit things, right? Good job moving your feet. That's success. Like praise success. Now they do that a couple of times. Okay, we're right. Here's the positive. Like I'm not trying to be Joe positive, but it seems to work. Like now they feel like they're doing something well. Okay, now you know what? Your feet are moving really well. Let's try to get that head up so you can scan the ice. Here's your purpose. Here's the reasons why. Okay, so then if that's coming, now you're getting to two things. Let's get to the third. So it doesn't change so that principle doesn't change when you're running a team. We're going to do a neutral zone regroup. Okay, so you can point out, do you have to move their feet? Do you have to have their head up? Centerman has to come nice and low, deep and wide. Wingers don't get too low, don't get too high. You get your sticks up the ice. It's got to be crisp. You got to call for pucks. Well, there's 20 instructions. So let's do it with one or two instructions, right? D, move your feet. Winger, get nice and low. Let's get up the ice quick. So if you don't do it that way, then you're going to constantly correct it. And it's just going to be overkill. You never get the drill done. So look at it, let them fail a little bit, and then it's one step or two steps at a time. And that you just build on success. And the next thing you know, maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's one practice, maybe it's 2 weeks, that issue is clicking well. But you have to praise a little bit and then give feedback and correct.
Yeah. I love that you said as the coach, you know they're going to do it wrong. Like, you know that, right?
They can't do it perfect.
Yeah, so it's like, you know that going in. So that's why it's like you're setting up a strategy that is effective.
I'm not even saying wrong. I'm saying not perfect.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because people want perfect.
Yes. So when you're in that role too, this is where you can kind of start to figure out how to work the individual now. So to your point, it's like, okay, let's say they did one thing right, two things wrong. Maybe this particular kid, you have to give them the compliment, then leave them alone for 10 minutes, and then come back to it after, and they respond to that. Maybe there's another kid where they need you to finish on the compliment, so you can give them the 2 corrections and then finish on the compliment. Or there's another kid where it's like you hit them with the compliment first, they'll open up, and then you hit them with the correction right away. And this is where you have to learn to work the individual player or individual person too, right? So that's great. The other part, maybe like from a less technical level, if it's not a skill thing, like maybe you're coaching a younger team or whatever. Because I remember this with coaches. I remember even with my parents. It's like you want to default to giving the life lesson. You want to say, you do this so that life, because we talk about that all the time. You want to teach them the principles of life and whatever. And it's like, yes, but not everything is a moment to give a life lesson. Like sometimes just let it go, man.
Well, that's what we call pick your battles.
Yes.